On this episode of Star Trek Universe, we have some exciting news from Star Trek Picard showrunner Terry Matalas, plus our review of Prodigy 115, Masquerade, right after these skippable subspace messages from our mystery sponsors.
Ooh, we might even talk about the outrageous Okana.
Oh yeah, we could talk about the outrageous Okana too.
Welcome to Star Trek Universe, the podcast where two lifelong friends sit and spin a yarn about the wagon train to the stars. My name is Matthew Carroll.
I'm David C. Robertson.
What's up, buddy?
Oh, bad things this week.
Yeah, sounds like you've had a rough one.
Yeah, I got COVID and our cat died, and now my wife has COVID. It's not a fun time.
Yeah,
but
that sounds terrible.
Some cool Star Trek stuff happened, so.
Yeah, well, that's what we're here to do. We turn away from all the things in our real life. And when we talk to each other, we generally stick to the escapism.
Yep.
Because who wants to hear about our lives?
Pick ourselves up. We, wipe off our musty genitals and talk about Star Trek.
Gross.
Look, if you're sick and you've been laying on the couch watching news radio all week, your undercarriage is a little musty.
I didn't need to know that this was an actual assessment of your current situation. That was too far. See, the first bit was just like, oh, that's classic Dave Robertson right there, just saying a thing to gross me out.
How you doing?
Now you've really done it.
Hey, one of those plastic orange peelers that just pull away at the Fermunda cheese. You know what I mean?
Oh gosh! To turn away from this conversation, I feel like a Star Trek audience would appreciate that. Tonight I have to stay up late. I'm not going to get to edit this tonight probably because I have to stay up late and burn a DVD for a client.
Yeah. Who
uses DVDs anymore?
How did they hire you from the past?
I don't know. Some sort of quantum tachyons. I don't know.
It's like your client shot a tractor beam into a freaking proton cloud in the middle of space.
Yep.
And hired you.
It's crazy. You know what it blows my mind though is last year I did this this is the third year in a row I've done this for this client. Made this DVD for them to run over their closed circuit television system. And, I was like, okay, well, it's an old university. I'm sure it's just like an old DVD player in their thing. So this year I got a message. Oh, hey, they got a new system. So Yay. We'll let you know. We don't know what format they need yet. And I was like, oh, okay. MP4, M4V, .move.
Mm-hmm. QuickTime, for Christ's sake.
Whatever. Any of those digital formats that I could bring a thumb drive or send it online, which would be much preferable.
Right.
And then they messaged me. Yep, sounds like they still need a DVD. I was like, what? They upgraded their system and they still need a DVD to play something? I don't understand.
Yeah. Can you put it on VHS for us?
I had to do that a few years ago. I don't know. It was 5 years ago for the UAB OSCE thing.
Oh.
Yeah, that
put
timing,
it on VHS?
Yeah, that timing tape.
I remember
it was
that.
my voice, saying over the... we used to work at this thing.
It's the student training, the med school student training. Yeah,
it was med school training. And it was you've seen it in Seinfeld. Kramer did this. People have to go in and they're the actors and actresses pretend to have diseases and med students come in and diagnose them. Yep. Yeah. Well, I did that, but I was the video guy. But they hired me to make a timing tape, and so it was my voice going over the loudspeaker the whole day. I was like, "Please proceed to the next station." It's fun times, but it had to be VHS, and that was not long ago.
Yeah,
not nearly VHS long ago.
It wasn't acceptable.
I had to pull out an old VHS recorder and connect it to my computer somehow. It was crazy. Okay, Well, let's talk about Star Trek. You say you got some news, I hear.
I do. There was an interview with Terry Matalas for the latest issue of Den of Geek magazine, and he said that in his mind he would have called the new Picard season Star Trek Legacy. He says it is truly a Picard story. Picard is the focus, but the spirit of it is different than seasons 1 and 2 just because of what it is. And he says, I think it's important to Deep Space Nine fans to feel seen. It's a continuation of Voyager 2, of course, with 7 of 9 in our show. If you're going to be in this time period, there's such a rich opportunity to honor what came before. He says season 3 picks up a year and a half to 2 years after season 2. He says season 3 will include some legacy characters from both DS9 and Voyager, in addition to Worf and 7, which we've already heard before.
Wow.
And says he has previously said that Worf's path, since Nemesis has a connection to the Dominion War, and in a summer of 22 interview with Trek Movie, Matalas said the fallout of the Dominion War is very important to the plot of Picard season 3.
Yeah, it being called Legacy, and they're talking about DS9 people being seen. I'm wondering if this villain might have something to do with the Dominion War.
Maybe. But yeah, in this new interview with Den of Geek, he says, I just felt like Picard season 3 needed to feel like it fit into this universe. It was very important to me, first and foremost, that it treads new ground, but also feels like a continuation of the stories and arcs set up 30 years ago. There's a fine line between fan service and just honoring the universe that you're in. So I just went full tilt at the things that mattered to me.
Nice. I love it, man. That sounds super exciting. And I really do feel like this probably means if the story has to do, and we know the story has a villain, it has a real antagonist. If the story has to do with the Dominion War, I've got to imagine that character must have something. And war is always something that like breeds, antagonists, like people that just had hard times during war, have hard feelings for all kinds of reason on all sides. And, it could be someone that's mad at either side of that war and trying to do something for revenge,
Yeah.
Those wars don't end easily. That's exciting.
It is. I'm very interested. I'm excited, but also trying to temper my expectations.
Yeah.
Because Picard season 1 and 2.
Yes, because of everything that's been happening. Not that they're bad, but some tempered expectations were in order.
Yeah. Yeah. I got into a little bit of hot water. I did an episode of that Star Trek podcast with our friends over at Cosmic Potato, or Infinite Potatoes, as they're called now. And I said part of the reason I do podcasts is just so that I can have it out there somewhere. No matter how many people listen, someone needs to know that we had better ideas than the show had.
It's good.
But yeah. But that's what I got on that, and we can move on. Do you want to talk about Outrageous Okana first, or you want to talk about Prodigy 115?
Yeah, let's just touch on Outrageous Okana.
Was it as bad as I said it was?
No, not at all. I loved it.
Okay.
I thought it was great.
Okay.
Even the Data and Joe Piscopo stuff, I was like, man, this is some classic 90s schlock. Like, I agree, it's not like a great sci-fi story, but you know what it reminded me a lot of? The Gary 7 episode. It felt like a backdoor pilot.
But you didn't like.
I hated that. But it was more like, I think I just hate that era of like that sort of spy show that doesn't feel like a spy show. That had its own problems. But what I'm saying is it felt like a backdoor pilot to me. Like, it felt like they were trying, especially knowing that he was possibly going to be Riker and like all this stuff. They liked this guy. It makes me wonder if they were like going for like, wonder if we can spin off an Okana show. Because
I don't think they were.
I mean, it was so Okana focused. The way he solved the problem in the end was all like, it was very much not Star Trek-ish at all. It felt very much like his show.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
And it reminded me of the Gary 7 episode.
Yeah, I can see that. But yeah, no, I don't like the Outrageous Okana. It's not the worst Star Trek ever. There are plenty of episodes I dislike more, but I will say I did take exception to, and maybe this is because of something that happened in the Dominion War. Clearly, something happened to him. He's lived a rough life, and by the time we get to Prodigy, but he was willing to like sacrifice himself basically and marry that lady in Outrageous Okana.
Mm-hmm. I don't think he was. I don't think he was.
You don't think he was?
No, that was a play, man.
You think that was just a play?
Yeah, because he wasn't going to give up. Because if he had said, yeah, they're together, you know, the prince and the princess, if he had said they're together, it would have been blowing up their spot. It would have like given him up, given him away. It would have been him breaking his promises. But if he says, oh, it was a total Solomon move. It was like cut the baby in half thing, where he's like, oh well, I'll just have to marry her then, and it's like, oh, that does seem like a solution to the problem, but it doesn't give the prince what he wants, and it made him profess his love. He was like drawing the prince out, and the princess was really upset that he wasn't standing up for himself and just saying like, no, I love her, let me have her, and then so Okana was spinning his little. He was puppet mastering them, and I liked that. I liked it. Yeah,
but you know, by Prodigy, I just didn't like that because I liked his character enough that it makes me cringe to be like, God, you just left these kids to their death in Prodigy. You're an asshole.
Did he? Yes, yeah. I'm not even really remembering where he ended up. He was like disappears in this episode.
No, he actively was like, well, I guess it's time for me to move on. While the Tal Shiar are surrounding these kids ready to kill them.
Yeah, it is the Tal Shiar. I don't know. Like, I see what you're saying. He also has that line a few moments earlier where he's like, first an admiral and now the Tal Shiar? Like, what are you kids doing? Yeah. He's like, this is above my pay grade. I'm out of here. Yeah.
And there's a whole thing where, like, in the last 2 episodes of Prodigy, they like really did a number. Like, he's smuggling illegal stuff, like, but he was so adamant to Picard, I'm not a criminal. And it turns out, no, he wasn't. So stuff has gone down, and they brought up, like, the showrunners and stuff brought up for Prodigy that, like, oh yeah, he's gone through a lot of stuff. They didn't really touch on any of that here.
Well, he did tell that one story.
He told the story that happened on TNG. Yeah. He had one story that time on TNG.
But see, I didn't believe him on that episode of Star Trek Next Generation when he tells, on the Outrageous Okana, when he tells Picard he's not a criminal. I didn't believe him.
Okay.
I think he was just telling him. He was telling him what he needed to tell the Federation to get away with what he was doing. Maybe. Yes, in this case, he wasn't as criminal. He didn't steal the thing. The guy gave it to him to give to her. But
it's just, you know, when we assume that he's like, we assume he's disreputable until he's not. And that was his one appearance. And all we have to go on is the fact that he said he wasn't a criminal, and it turned out he wasn't. And we've never seen him again, except when he was DJing that party on Lower Decks. There's nothing criminal about that.
I just didn't believe him in that case. Or, like, I didn't think that he was... I thought he was definitely, like, a smuggler or something, you know? He was still smuggling in those episodes. He just wasn't smuggling something that was illegal. He didn't steal. He didn't steal it. He was still smuggling, though. I'm assuming he still, like, broke laws to, like, get through whatever checkpoints he needed to get to. He definitely seems a little selfish and disreputable, which, you know, I don't mind. I like him a lot. He's very Malcolm Reynolds to me.
Malcolm Reynolds with way less personality.
Well, yeah, sure. Thus far, I feel like, you know, we haven't had much time with him.
So what? Malcolm Reynolds in the first, like, 5 seconds of being Malcolm Reynolds on screen had loads more personality than Okana has in his 4 episodes.
Yeah, you're probably right there.
I'm absolutely right. One line, we're too pretty to die.
Yeah, it's a good line.
Better than anything Okana ever did.
but yeah, I liked the episode. I thought it was fun. I thought, you know, like I said, it was schlocky and silly in places, but I even kind of liked the Joe Piscopo stuff. Like, it just felt like silly Data stuff to me. Silly B-plot Data stuff that was, I don't know. I enjoyed watching it.
Oh, that's fine. I mean, it's enjoyable in as much as this an episode of TNG, which I don't hate any Star Trek enough that I don't have some enjoyment watching it. Like,
yeah,
there's still that level of comfort. I've still got that, like, there's still that feeling of, well, at least I'm with family. Like, it's not like the worst thing ever. Any Star Trek is not the worst thing ever.
For sure. You know what I really thought? You talk about him being disreputable and whether we trust him or not. I thought the whole time he might be really about to turn on the kids because he takes them to this, like, he owes money or owes something to people at this station. And he brings this, like, highly experimental ship with, like, a crazy weapon on board, with a crate, like, all this stuff. And he brings it to this, shipyard. And I'm like, this does not seem good at all. Like, this seems like he is playing those kids. Like, he's like, I know a place we can, get this done. And then he's just going to turn the ship over to, you could totally see him just being like, well, you kids stole it. I stole it from you. It's fine. And like, I worked at a shuttle for you in the deal. You can get back to the Federation that way or something.
Right. And that's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that, like, we'll get one more shot with Okana at least in the next episode or two or something.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Where, like, we find out a little bit more, because this episode of Prodigy, Masquerade, really kind of left me feeling a little flat. He takes them to Noble Isle and takes them directly to this Dr. Jago geneticist who, as far as I can tell, had no reason monetarily to do anything to Dal.
Oh, I thought it was just because she like enjoyed the experimentation. But yes, I agree with you. There was not a good monetary reason.
Yeah, like, she's like, well, you didn't bring me my shipment, but you brought me something better.
You brought
what's
me
in it for you?
Specimen. Well,
yeah, what's in it for you?
I think that she just like wants to see what she can do with all that genetic potential or whatever,
Right. And then, like, part of me, like, it would make sense if Dal is what she said he is, of why, if he was just nothing but genetically engineered straight from a petri dish.
Yeah, I called this.
Cool.
I called this 3 episodes ago when he walked through the thing and they're like, report to Starfleet. I was like, I bet he's genetically engineered.
But there is a thing, though, like, because, like, when you look at the board of all the different traits, all the species and stuff that he is, they have symbols for the Dominion and the Maquis. And those are groups, those are not species. Not that those kids would realize that. But it made me feel like it was all bullshit. It made me feel like possibly, and I hope it was bullshit and not like them screwing up Easter eggs. It wouldn't make sense.
It could be that, like, the symbol was of the Maquis, but, like, the genetic code was of, a member world or something like that. The Bajorans or something. Yeah, but
the Maquis were made up of all sorts of different species. Right. It was a terrorist group. It wasn't a race.
Yeah. Maquis. Dominion, I was thinking, makes more sense, like, because there were a limited number of races. So
we talked about Jem'Hadar. We talking about the Changelings. Right. We talking about
but
Lavorda.
There are a limited number. But there could be, I don't know what they would mean by the Maquis. That does seem silly.
So, part of me hopes, one, we can reconcile that with, one, having that being a trick from Jago to just, like, have a bunch of symbols up there and maybe Dal is actually something different.
Yeah, I think, based on the way this episode went down, it seems to me that was the real answer. That is what Dal is. He is a most likely human hybrid augment.
Maybe.
I took that as, also, like, whatever Jago did worked. Like, it worked on.
Yeah.
So, like, whatever Jago was doing was, like, a real thing that could be done to him.
It could, but if Jago is who Jago claims that she is in the first place, she probably could have done that anyway. I mean, maybe. She certainly messed with this Instant Essentia. Gave her the neck button too, that made her look Trill and be able to pass for Trill on the Dauntless.
We don't know that Jago did that, right?
I mean, it was the same neck button.
Yeah, I think that was just supposed to be a signal to the audience that she has a similar implant or whatever. But yeah, I didn't.
Again, I hope that's not true.
You hope it's not. It needs to be Jago.
Really, that needs to be Jago. That is really friggin' lazy. If they're given the exact same button to two different characters, like, oh, it's not connected.
I don't know if I could call that lazy. That to me, that's like saying two people using the same phaser that didn't relate to each other. I don't know.
And by the way, this episode had one of the worst things for me is a reset button where they're like, oh, we're going to undo everything he just did.
Sure.
And I was like, no, I need stakes. I need consequences. I need this kid to actually have to deal with this. You know,
I agree with that. You know, once he started like getting all beast looking and stuff, I was like, yeah, they're not going to keep all of that. Yeah,
that's what I thought.
Yeah, as soon as that happened, which is a bummer. That's the sign of a kids show, honestly. Like that's
the sign of Star Trek.
It's not all Star Trek.
Most Star Trek, TNG and Voyager, definitely. Yes. TOS,
I
yes,
I agree. Especially middle of the season, if you're having drastic changes to your. Like we're smack in the middle of the second season. They're not going to do something.
They're going to change them just enough that they can have a new action figure of them.
Just let the second season thing slide right by.
No, I'm so tired of talking about it. You've worn me down.
Yeah, exactly. That's my
we're
point.
We're now in the fourth season of Prodigy, and because every week, because it's a hiatus between 6 days, that's the season.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a long hiatus.
Yeah, man. I wasn't huge on this one. I love that she's like, oh, it's the proteges of the Dr. Eric Soong. Do we have to keep bringing up Soong? Mm-hmm. Is he the only geneticist ever?
Well, like, at least it wasn't actually him. It was like the proteges, whatever. That's fine to me. It was a cute little Easter egg. Yeah, it's just funny. It feels like you like lost your suspension of disbelief this episode because you're just like everything's like like there's we like little Easter eggs like that. Hey, it's a Soong. Oh yeah, the thing. I don't know. You lost your charitability. I don't know what caused it, but in this episode, didn't have anything to keep your charitability going.
The charitability, I done been lost my charitability for everyone mentioning a Soong. Like, the universe is so damn small at this point.
Yeah.
Because if anyone's a geneticist, they're either going to be Soong or mention Soong. Right. Same thing with, like, or positronics.
Or into positronics. So it's like half of the science in this world is Soong related.
Yeah, at this point, like, and it's become increasingly evident that Kurtzman's favorite show was TNG because, like, damn if Data wasn't the greatest creation that ever happened in the history of Star Trek, according to New Star Trek. Right. It's just frustrating, and it limits I'm the guy that's like, I'm a fan, service me, but at this point it's just like sometimes what fans need is to not be spoon-fed the same shit over and over again. And to have their universe like condensed down to, like, oh my god, like,
yeah,
there's so many there's so many Soongs now. They're just like their own race spanning through the ages, and they all look like exactly like Brent Spiner.
Mm-hmm.
They're the only ones who did. Are they the preservers?
Maybe. There you go.
Jesus, God, and Apollo. What are we doing here, man? Anyway.
I hear you. I enjoyed this episode. It was a fun little adventure, and I like what the crew did. But I agree with you on some of those points. And particularly, I thought Okana just disappeared. Like, I didn't even feel like he left them. It just felt like he was just gone from the episode.
Oh, no. He very, very clearly, like, abandoned them because he was scared of the Tal Shiar.
Right. I have no doubt. But I'm just saying, like, I felt like he just feels it quickly extracted. There wasn't, like, there was no fanfare around his leaving, which felt weird when you've had him there for this third episode now, and they started the episode talking about how important he was to them, even if like he had left and they had felt sad about him leaving for a little longer or something. I don't know. There just was no fanfare around it. And I do agree with you that I wish that Dahl had some last, even if it was just like, we think we reversed it in time, but there could be lasting effects or something like that.
And they could still do that. They still could do that.
Yes, but they did say specifically, we were able to stop it before there were any permanent effects, which like, you know, feels like, at least for this episode, feels like, oh yeah, reset button. All right.
Reset button, yeah. One thing I'm happy that they didn't reset is Murph changing. I'm not sure that I completely understand or get behind him being suddenly John Wick of the show.
Yeah, it will, especially right after they did it to Dahl. Like, Dahl just had his John Wick moment, and then immediately after they released Murph to do the same exact thing, it felt a little like that was a little crowded for action-y stuff this episode. But you're fighting the Tal Shiar. What are you going to do?
I did love that they had the Tal Shiar. Or as John Irons called them, space ninjas, flying space ninjas.
For sure. It's the Foot Clan in space. Absolutely. I like the overall thrust of the episode, but yeah, it feels flawed, and it doesn't really feel very Star Trek-y. It felt just like an action cartoon kids show, which more so than many other weeks have felt like kid shows. And
you know what? It's it had the same problem that a lot of Neutral Zone episodes tend to have, is like they don't really, the Neutral Zone is so poorly defined in universe.
Absolutely.
Where it's like they go into the Neutral Zone and then they're at Noble Isle, and I'm like, okay, but so Janeway can see that from the other side of the Neutral Zone, or like, are they just inside of the Neutral Zone?
Right.
Can they're just like sitting there watching.
They're getting a lot of information. Like, to the second. They're shooting torpedoes. Yeah, which surely firing torpedoes into the Neutral Zone isn't like a cleared thing. And also the Romulans broke it. The Tal Shiar going in, that would break the Neutral Zone treaty, and like, I don't know. I guess Starfleet
Romulans came from behind. They came from like the opposite direction, so clearly they had to have gone through. Well,
it was in the Neutral Zone. Like the station was in the Neutral Zone. So
yeah, but the Romulans are going to break the treaty. They're going to go through the Neutral Zone. Right. They're going to send their Tal Shiar task force in.
But somehow the stealth task force is like completely visible to Janeway. It's just a weird. Yeah, it was weird. I'm with you completely. We haven't talked about Dreadnought is back, or a version of Dreadnought is back.
Yeah, he was a coffee table. And turns out there was more than meets the eye.
So funny you say that. You know what auto played when I was watching this episode was the Transformers, which is very funny. You mentioned that because it was funny. Like immediately when this ended, the 3 seconds, 2 seconds, 1 second, and there was just the Autobots fighting. Yeah, and that's what made me think this more as a kid show. Like I was watching the Autobots fight the Decepticons, and I was like, this was kind of like what Prodigy was like this week. Like they're just like fighting the Tal Shiar. Yeah,
what's funny about that is that like, yeah, it may have, okay, so I guess they have this new Transformers thing on Paramount Plus, but what got me thinking about Transformers right before we watched this episode is my wife listens to Fake Doctors, Real Friends, and Donald Faison has this thing that he does on the show, and he's been doing it for years. We found a clip of him doing it like 3 years into Late Night with Conan O'Brien while he was like on Scrubs or something. But he has this impression he does, this Neil Diamond singing the Transformers theme. And he's like, Transformers, more than meets the eye. So like, we were watching that and like laughing our dicks off. And then I watched this episode and I'm like, now Dreadnought is a Transformer. Cool.
Yep. Fully Transformer. And as is this other member of... I can't remember the guys' names, but the villains. What's the main villain guy's name? John Noble or whatever.
Oh, Diviner.
The Diviner, another member of Gwen and Diviner's
the Valnakat.
Valnakat. Thank you. I am spacing.
Yeah.
So we got another Valnakat member. who we've known for weeks as this other character.
Ensign Essentia.
Yeah, I thought that was cool because I rewatched this episode because I'd watched it a week ago, right when it came out anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And in the beginning of the episode, she's like, "Captain, let me go into the neutral zone. I'll go in stealthily and I'll get the protostar," which was very clever because she's trying to convince her to let me get away from you and get to the ship I want. It was a nice little laying track for her being evil later.
Yeah.
Not evil at Star Trek.
Ulterior motive.
Yeah, there's a nice ulterior motive to that.
Yeah, I've hated her name since the beginning. The Ensign Essentia.
Oh yeah,
because it just sounds like a female version of ensign somehow, like Ensign Essentia.
It feels like or ensign and then ensign backwards or something.
Right? Yeah, it's like, and it's not. It's just like, I don't know. It's like this is my friend, Lieutenant. Yeah, like it feels like it's a Mel Brooks joke or something.
Yeah, that is not great. Well, now she should have a new name, so that'll be interesting.
Yeah. So I don't think I have a lot more to say about this episode.
I got nothing. I'm done.
I could tell you that I was glad that Roddy Cox came back as Jellicoe, but he did not Play it in a way that I would have suggested he play it. He very much like overacted because he's like, I'm on a cartoon now and it's been 30 years.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was
like, well, you have to destroy the thing.
Oh, I do have one question about this episode. What time period is this? Do we have it nailed down? I know I've asked before, and I think we nailed it down. Mostly because we're encountering the Romulans, and they're still an enemy of the Federation, which I guess they never really fully become a friend, but like... This is
clearly after Nemesis.
After Nemesis?
Yeah, it's after Nemesis because they mentioned the shaky political ground or whatever, and it is after.
But it's before the supernova.
Yeah, it's before the supernova.
But after Nemesis. Okay, that's what I was trying to nail down because I was like, well, they're clearly not like on the run from the supernova or whatever yet.
Right. So yeah, this is after. This is after Nemesis, sometime.
Okay.
And they've given star dates that would give an indication, but I don't pay attention to those.
Right.
Because I'm not that nerd.
Yeah, not that kind of nerd.
I'm a bit of a ship wonk, and I really...
ship wonk.
I have my things that I'm like obsessed with, but like I'm not the guy that's like sitting there like trying to figure out star dates. I'm like, I'm sorry, but those are numbers, and I had a deal with the universe that I was not going to deal with numbers.
Yeah, absolutely.
We got a couple of pieces of feedback
if you want to talk about. Yeah, let's do it. Let's hear it.
All right. Well, we got Andre Sparks here.
Woo, Andre! Yay! Sorry about missing your feedback for years.
It's years. Andre says, "Hey guys, hope this email finds you well." It does not, but we'll get better. Fingers crossed. I am loving this part of the season so far. The character growth continues to be stellar, especially for a quote-unquote kids show. I do agree with that. The character growth is pretty good.
Yeah, I agree.
Andre says, "I wanted to get your theories about Chakotay. Where is he? When Admiral Janeway got there, there was only one life sign. You guys are knowledgeable. So just wanted to see what you thought. You guys are hilarious, by the way. Keep up the good work."
Thanks, Andre.
Thank you, Andre. Yeah, I don't know where Chakotay is.
Yeah, I mean, that is the mystery of the show, at least from Janeway's perspective. She's just all about figuring out what happened. It's not just Chakotay, it's his entire crew.
Yeah.
So where are they?
Yeah, I mean... Do they have Trump rallies in the future? Sorry, I had to.
Here's my theory.
I had to.
Time displacement.
I'm going to take a pull of my Pedialyte here.
Here's my theory. The time displacement. They brought the Diviner back, and apparently brought Ensign back as well. So... Could they have also like sent them forward or sent them somewhere else using time travel since they're nowhere to be found? Like maybe they swapped places time track style. No, I don't think that happened in time tracks.
Essentia.
Yeah. Essentia.
Uh-huh.
Essentia placentia.
Oh, no. Well, now we've done flip the script, y'all. I don't know what that means.
Yeah. So that's my best theory, because they're nowhere to be found. He either like killed them all, which isn't going to happen because Chakotay's going to show up sometime, or has done something, and we know they are somehow masters of time travel.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to hide somebody somewhere. It's not about where they are. It's about when they are.
He might be in like a prison somewhere.
Yeah, like Shadow Zone style or whatever. What's that?
What?
What's the
Shadow Zone?
What's the
Phantom
thing?
Zone?
That's the thing. Phantom Zone. He's like those three criminals, 3 Kryptonians. It's Chakotay and 2 of his ensigns, and they're like reaching out to the glass. That's why I saw a really, really good cosplay of that. I was at a Dragon Con. I did? Did I tell you this? Okay.
Yes.
Sorry.
Took me a second to remember.
Yeah, but it was 3 people dressed as the Kryptonians, but they were like actually standing behind a pane of glass, so it looked like they were in the Phantom Zone. It was really nice.
Zod, Non, and Ursa.
Yeah, those.
The Kryptonian criminals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you, Andre, for that piece of feedback. Who else?
Yeah, man.
Who else has graced us with feedback?
Oh, you know.
Would it be Stu?
It would be Stu. Subject line, Spiner. Stu Little says, "Fine, Matt. You get a pass this time. I was still going to strangle you for not remembering Okana's TNG episode, but then I realized I'd have to go find you, and I don't know how to drive in the UK, let alone by American highway rules, and I'm not prepared to risk using American public transport. Anyway, Prodigy this week. We found out Dal's origins, and it's augment stuff. Again. Mm-hmm. Star Trek has like 4 storylines. It just keeps doing ad nauseum. There's augments, Borg, Klingon Empire stuff, and traveling through time to what would be the rough present day of the audience watching the show. We can't get any major storylines following up on the Dominion War aftermath. Well, I mean, we just said.
We might soon.
We can't get any major storylines. Sorry, they'll just keep doing those chestnuts. How long before Brent Spiner gets a voice role on the show out of this somehow? I suppose it's going to be interesting to see how Starfleet wants to handle Dal, though didn't the DS9 plot involving Bashir and other genetically modified humans kind of resolve that? No, it didn't. He was still somewhat illegal.
Yeah, they used them, but they saw them in like a prison. They like made them work on the Dominion War from prison. And they also imprisoned his parents because he had no choice in the matter. That's right. It's just, I said this when we first thought of the augment thing might show up here, and it's like, it's strange that they just did this major augment storyline on Strange New Worlds. Yeah. And now we're dealing with it here too, and seeing it from different perspectives, but still it's very, very, very I mean, just as Stu is saying, it's stacking that same storyline on top of that same storyline.
It is.
It's like a augment pancake stack.
Timeline-wise, they can't really fully resolve what they're going for on Prodigy in Strange New Worlds because of all the stuff with Bashir. And the showrunners, the writers have said of Prodigy have said they wanted to deal with one of the last great prejudices within the Federation, and that would be the genetically engineered individuals. So,
right. Which is absolutely, I'm not saying they're going to resolve together. I'm saying like, it's exactly what Stu's saying, which is like they're just
I agree with
the same thing.
I agree with Stu, but there is a lot of like unresolved stuff in Star Trek that the previous series before all the new Star Trek started coming out that they have to go back to if they want to like wrap any of that up. And as it appears that most of these people writing the show and running the shows now are old fans. I imagine this is probably pretty easy for them to get caught up in that. But no, I agree. I think, let's branch out a little bit, obviously, because I was making kind of the same, bitchings this episode.
All your rantings and bitchings.
My bitchings, my moanings. Stu continues. The Romulan plot was nice too, and I appreciate Jellicoe appearing to be an actual voice of reason and not get Flanderized into he's not overly nice, so he's a bad admiral territory. Obvious. Well, I don't know. I don't know that I can agree with that, Stu, because he was like, hey, you should blow up a bunch of kids.
Yeah, he's a hard ass, but he's fair.
Stu says the DNA mad scientist at the space station was a nice addition, who I expected to be more of a factor in the story, since meeting her reminded of the Farscape episode DNA Mad Scientist, which also dealt with a geneticist who could tell people where they came from, but asked for a heavy price in exchange. I'm honestly hoping we get more of her and in the next 4 or 5 episodes, whatever it is. Something else I didn't like overall was a feeling of constant, contrived feeling. I'm glad Dal had the dermal implant removed because I didn't want his dormant genes to become a constant deus machina where he'd solve a crisis by tapping into one of the traits. It was also a bit corny and nonsensical to me that when those traits came up, he also seemed to adopt the cultural aspect of the race in question. Being part Vulcan shouldn't have made him go into logic mode, not just because he has little knowledge of what Vulcans are about, but also that's not a biological aspect of the race. That's a good point.
That's a really good point.
Nor did I like that in the same episode they introduced this genetics-altering dermal implant plot device. They also revealed one of Janeway's officers has one too around the same time. Though I do like the spy thing in Return of Dreadnought. Ugh. Also, I told you New Murph wasn't right. He's a killing machine. Take care, Stu. Sorry, take care, Stu. Take care, Stu.
Yeah, that's how he ended his message, because he got confused about which personality he was speaking at the moment.
Oh, stop that. Stop that. No more of Stu as my alter. He's not.
See, I heard you didn't mention it this week, and I knew that the two of you in that body were getting tired of the joke.
You stop beating this dead ass horse, man.
When it stops spitting out money.
By the way, speaking of beating things off, Dal said he could feel a third arm growing, and I don't feel like we ever saw that third arm, but all of a sudden he did have like all this cum all over the place. What was that about? Like, did the gooey stuff all over him come from the third arm that we never saw because it's a kid's show? What was that, Matt? Do you know?
Joel, untrue.
Live long and prosper.
Thank you for listening to the Star Trek Universe Podcast, a Stranded Panda production. If you'd like to hear more from David C. Robertson, check out the DC On Screen podcast or maladjusted.tv for his web videos. If you'd like to hear more from Matthew Carroll, check out the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast or listen to his music. Just search for Matthew Carroll anywhere you get music.